Welcome, everyone, to The Deep Dive, brought to you by the Last Highlight channel.
Great to be here.
This is episode 4 of our The Pod and the Page series, and today we're diving deep into a book that's really quite something. It unpacks some fascinating and, well, frankly, a bit unsettling trends shaping our world.
It definitely makes you think.
We're talking about Jonathan V. Last's book, What to Expect When No One's Expecting. I mean, this book really challenges a lot of assumptions, especially about something as, fundamental as having kids.
Absolutely. It flips a common narrative right on its head.
Before we properly dig in, there's this one quote that just, wow, it jumped right out. It's actually in our video thumbnail today.
Ah, the Ponzi scheme one.
That's the one. It says, Social Security is, in essence, a Ponzi scheme. Like all Ponzi schemes, it works just fine so long as the intake of new participants continues to increase. Pretty bold statement, right?
Very bold. And provocative.
And, capturing insights like that, we actually use this great app called Readwise. If you read ebooks, it's super handy for saving and revisiting your highlights. Really helps keep things straight for deep dives like this.
Useful tool.
Yeah, definitely. Check it out. There's a link in the description. Anyway, our goal today is to give you a solid summary of this book, pull out the main takeaways, the key insights.
Basically, a shortcut to understanding these big, complex forces behind a global shift that weirdly doesn't get talked about nearly enough.
Exactly. So where does the book start? What's the core argument?
Well, like you hinted, it argues we've been worried about the wrong thing. For decades, you had figures like Paul Ehrlich, the
Yeah.
population bomb, warning about overpopulation.
Right, that was the big fear for a long time.
But Last says, nope, the real crisis brewing is a population implosion. He talks about this golden number, Miniti 2.1 births per woman needed just to keep a population stable.
And the reality is,
The reality is most developed countries, the U.S. included, are already way below that 2.1 mark. That's the central problem the book unpacks.
okay, so let's unpack that first big idea. The West just isn't having enough babies. The book gives some pretty vivid examples, doesn't it? Not just the stats for places like Japan or Italy.
Oh, yeah, the anecdotes are striking. Japan and Italy are down around 1.4, right? Places where literally dogs outnumber kids under 10.
Wow.
But he also paints this picture of Old Town Alexandria, Virginia, calls it a wildlife preserve for yuppies, where, a fancy children's clothing store goes bust and what replaces it? A doggy spa.
That says a lot, doesn't it? A doggy spa instead of kids' clothes. It's a small picture of this, unseen shift.
It really is. And the global numbers back it up. The world's fertility rate, it's dropped from 6.0 back in 1979 to about 2.52 today. That's a huge fall.
Huge.
And like we said, all first world countries are already below that 2.1 replacement level. The book even says America has kind of unintentionally created its very own one-child policy.
How so?
Well, specifically looking at white college-educated women, their fertility rate is about 1.6. That's pretty close to China's official rate of 1.54 under the actual one-child policy.
That's startling. So the big question the book tackles then is why? Why is this happening almost everywhere across such different cultures and economies?
Exactly. And one major factor, maybe the most obvious one for many people, is cost.
Ah, yes, the money. This is where it gets really interesting, or maybe terrifying, depending on your perspective. The book argues having kids has become just astonishingly expensive.
Right. And it's not just, the fancy stuff you see, like a $52,000 pirate playhouse someone bought, or those $880 Bugaboo strollers.
So those things exist.
They do.
Yeah.
But the basic costs are staggering, too. The USDA numbers. Let's see. A child born in 1960 cost about $25,000, give or take, to raise to 18.
Okay.
By 2007, even adjusted for inflation, that cost was up 15%. And that's before you even think about college.
Right, in college, that's a whole other beast.
Oh, yeah. The book points out college costs can range from maybe $66,000 for a state school to over $200,000 for elite universities. And get this, costs have gone up 1,000% in real dollars over 35 years.
1,000%. That's
unbelievable, mind-boggling. Then there's the time cost. Working mothers today actually spend almost as much time directly with their kids as stay-at-home moms did back in 1965.
really, that's surprising.
Yeah, the expectations have changed. And if a mother stays home, The potential lost wages can be over $823,000.
Okay, so add all that up.
Add it all up, direct costs, college, lost wages, and the book calculates raising one child can easily top $1.1 million,
1.1 million.
which, as the book puts it, is like buying 6 houses all at once.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that really puts it in perspective. It's not just expensive, it's life-altering expensive. It changes the whole calculation for people.
Fundamentally. And that staggering cost leads right back to that Social Security quote you mentioned.
The Ponzi scheme idea.
Yeah.
How does the book connect the cost of kids to things like Social Security and Medicare?
Well, the argument is that these programs, while designed as safety nets, have unintentionally created a disincentive to have children.
How does that work?
Historically, children were your Social Security. They looked after you in old age. It was a direct return on investment in purely economic terms.
Right, your kids were your retirement plan.
Exactly. But now the government steps in. Social Security, Medicare, these are funded by current workers paying taxes.
Okay.
But look at the ratio. In 1940, there were like 160 workers paying in for every retiree. By 2010, it was down to just 2.9 workers per retiree.
2.9, that's not sustainable.
And it's projected to hit 2.1 by 2034. So the book asks, if you spend that $1.1 million raising a child and their future taxes go to support everyone's retirement, not specifically yours, what's the direct economic incentive for you to have that child?
Yeah, I see the argument. It becomes a kind of public good that you privately pay almost entirely for.
Precisely. The book suggests these systems might suppress fertility by as much as half a child per woman. It's about these subtle systemic pressures.
So the cost is huge, and the state kind of diffuses the direct benefit. The book also touches on capitalism itself, right? Saying it can undervalue family.
Yeah, it argues that capitalism, for all its benefits, tends to focus on immediate economic output and can sometimes undervalue human capital, the long-term investment of raising the next generation. And it presents this impossible choice for women, often, between career and motherhood.
Okay, so economics is a huge piece, but it's not just money, is it? The book talks a lot about cultural shifts, too.
Oh, absolutely. Cultural shifts are massive. The book points to the pill as a major starting point.
The contraceptive pill.
Championed by figures like Margaret Sanger, its widespread availability, especially at the book notes, among educated women, ironically led to lower fertility rates in those very groups first.
So the people who perhaps adopted it earliest saw the biggest drops.
Seems that way. And that was just the beginning. It fed into broader changes in attitudes towards sex, marriage, family.
It feels like a domino effect, almost. One change leads to another.
Totally. You then have the legalization of abortion with Roe v. Wade in 1973. The book states that, following that, roughly a quarter of all pregnancies ended in abortion for a period. That obviously has a direct impact.
Right.
Then combine that with the decline of marriage as an institution, people marrying later, if at all, the rise of just living together, cohabitation.
And divorce rates went up too, right?
Yep, hitting around 45% by the year 2000. All these things, later marriage, less marriage, more divorce, contraception, abortion access, they all point in the same direction. Fewer babies being born within traditional family structures.
And the book notes a class difference there too.
Yeah, it observes that highly educated people still tend to have relatively stable marriages statistically, but in the middle and working classes, there's been a much bigger move away from traditional marriage and family formation.
So it's like all these different threads, economic, social, technological, are weaving together to push fertility down.
Exactly. It's complex, multi-causal.
The book even brings in like where we physically live, the environment.
Yeah, the dirt gap theory. It's interesting.
Dirt gap.
Basically, the idea that land is expensive, especially in cities. High land costs mean smaller homes, apartments, condos, which makes it harder or less desirable to have large families.
Compared to having a big house in the suburbs.
Right. The book points out that the post-World War II suburban boom with all those single-family homes happened at the exact same time as the baby boom. It suggests there's a connection. Cheaper land, bigger houses, more kids.
Huh. So is low fertility just a symptom of being crammed into expensive cities, or is there something deeper, like a change in values?
Well, that leads to another major theory the book discusses, the second demographic transition.
Okay, what's that?
It suggests that falling fertility isn't just an accident or purely driven by economics. It's more like an evolution of society, a shift towards prioritizing individualism, self-expression, self-actualization.
So having kids becomes less central to identity or life goals.
Potentially, yes. In this view, being child-free isn't seen as a lack, but as a positive lifestyle choice for achieving personal fulfillment. It's the idea that modernity itself, maybe, inherently nudges us towards having fewer children because we value other things more.
That's a pretty profound idea and kind of chilling in a way.
It is. It suggests this isn't easily reversible if it's tied to core modern values.
So if these trends continue, what are the consequences? The book paints a fairly grim picture, right? Talks about very bad things happening.
It does. It uses Venice as a stark example. Lost half its population since 1960. It's becoming, a beautiful museum, but not really a living city. The book says Venice effectively decided to stop having children.
A museum city.
Wow.
And beyond picturesque examples, what about the big picture, economically, geopolitically?
Yeah, the fallout is serious. Germany, for instance, is already dealing with managing a shrinking society. They're literally tearing down empty apartment blocks in some areas, turning old industrial sites into parks because there aren't enough people or businesses.
So economic decline is one part.
Definitely. Older populations means smaller tax bases just when demands on pensions and healthcare are rising.
Yeah.
You tend to get less innovation, less entrepreneurial risk-taking. It's harder to project military or economic power globally.
And the book mentions instability, too.
Right. It contrasts shrinking developed nations with places that have youth bulges, large populations of young people, like Iran or the Palestinian territories historically, which can sometimes correlate with unrest if opportunities are scarce.
And Russia.
Russia is presented as a particularly alarming case. The book calls it almost national suicide. Extremely low birth rates combined with shockingly high mortality rates, especially among men, linked to things like alcoholism, poor health, and also very high abortion rates historically.
So the fundamental question the book raises is, could this demographic decline actually lead to a less stable, perhaps even more dangerous world?
That's certainly the implication. It questions the long-term stability and dynamism of societies that aren't replenishing themselves.
Okay, so given all this, can anything be done? Can we turn the tide? The book seems pretty skeptical about past efforts.
Very skeptical. It looks at attempts to basically bribe people into having more kids.
Like what?
Well, Russia tried things like a motherhood medal. Singapore has offered baby bonus payments, thousands of dollars per child.
And did it work?
Mostly no, or the effects were marginal, temporary. People might have a child slightly sooner if they were planning one anyway, but it didn't fundamentally change decisions for most. Japan tried things like promoting robot babies for practice and various angel plans to support families. Didn't halt their decline either.
So cash incentives don't seem to be the answer. Why not?
The book suggests three sort of golden rules for natalism, for trying to boost birth rates. First, it argues that once a country's fertility rate drops below a certain point, maybe around 1.5, it's incredibly hard, maybe impossible, to recover. Momentum is lost.
Like a point of no return.
Kind of. Second, any successful effort would need to be sustained for generations, not just a few years. It's a long game. And third, echoing the failure of bribes, the book states bluntly, you can't bribe people to have babies because, quote, having kids is literally no fun if your highest value is personal pleasure and ease.
Oof. That's a tough line.
It is. But it forces the question, if children aren't primarily about fun or pleasure in the modern sense, what is their purpose? Why have them?
So if bribes are out, what does the book suggest might actually help, or at least not make things worse?
It seems to lean towards removing obstacles for people who do want children, making it easier for them.
Like addressing the cost issue.
Exactly. Reforming the college system so it's not such an insane financial burden. Maybe promoting more family-friendly setups, like the family housing examples at places like Brigham Young University.
In the dirt gap.
Yeah, policies that could make housing, especially family-sized housing, more affordable, perhaps lessening the pressure to live in tiny, expensive urban spaces if you want kids.
So practical support rather than cash bonuses. Anything else?
One final point it makes is about culture and values. It notes that America's fertility rate, while low, is still generally higher than most of Europe or East Asia.
Why might that be?
The book tentatively links it to America's relatively higher levels of religious observance. Statistically, people who regularly attend religious services tend to have more children than those who don't.
Interesting. So maybe deeper beliefs play a role.
It suggests that connection is worth considering, that maybe a strong sense of purpose beyond individual pleasure is a factor.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, it's a lot to take in. The forces shaping birth rates are just woven so deeply into modern life, economics, culture, technology, even where we live.
It's incredibly complex, no easy answers.
But that closing thought from the book is really powerful. It acknowledges that, yes, children might utterly and completely destroy a life focused purely on maximizing personal pleasure.
A provocative way to put it.
But then it says, pleasure is a shallow goal, and the well-examined life requires more. It demands seriousness of purpose. Nothing is more serious than having children.
That really frames it as a question of ultimate values, doesn't it?
It does.
And the book kind of leaves you with this idea. If you believe in anything seriously, your community, your country, your faith, some ideal you hold dear, if you really believe it's important and should continue, well then, babies have to follow. Otherwise, what you believe in eventually disappears.
That is definitely something to mull over. A powerful final thought.
Indeed.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this really enlightening deep dive. We hope you out there found this exploration as thought-provoking as we did.
I hope it sparks some thinking.
If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and subscribe to the Last Highlight channel so you don't miss our next deep dive on the pod and the page.
We'll see you then.
See you next time.